Hi guys, welcome back to Chris Horner's Corner. We got a new video here. I want to show you guys what's happening when you are pedaling through the corners and why a lot of times it causes accidents and the importance on how to avoid the accidents. Of course, everybody knows when you hit your pedal on the concrete as you're pedaling through the corners, that's the easy one to spot out. Guy hits his pedal, back of the bike comes up off the road like that, kicks out to the side, lands down, everybody crashes. That's the normal easy one. There's also other ways to avoid the crashes, and a lot of times it's when you're coming through the corner, they have a really fast RPM because they're coming down, say like a hill like this, and they've been coasting while you're in the field there or the peloton of riders and stuff. And so if you're coming through with a lot of speed, when you get into the corner, you want to make sure when you start to pedal in that corner that you're smooth with the pedals. So remember, everything that's important with pedaling through the corner is you have the contact between the tire and the road. Most important thing, because it's the only thing keeping your bike upright. So everything you do up top, up on the saddle, up on the pedals, along with your hand position, body position, moving the bike left to right, jerking it, accelerating it, deaccelerating it, all that is going to affect the contact patch between your tire and the pavement, and that's what causes the tire to lose contact. At small speeds, I'll do this turn at small speeds. I'll go up the hill at small. It's really easy to pedal through when you're going slow and this uphill grade. But now when I'm coming down the hill and say you're doing 30 miles an hour into this corner, it's a different perspective because the contact point between the tire and the concrete is going to change. As the tire is pushing, as you're leaning the bike in, the tire is going to want to push like this, and that's adding contact to the concrete. But then when you start pedaling early or you clip a pedal or something, that will upset the contact between the tire and the concrete, and that's what causes the tire to lose traction, and then what causes you to crash. So I'll do a couple different examples here of how to come through this corner while pedaling. Now remember, going up hills, no problem, but coming downhill with speed, got to make sure you keep that RPM of the pedals lower, power smooth, but most important, everything on the bike is done really smooth and not jerky. The more you jerk, the more it causes the contact point between the tire and the concrete to start losing grip, and you don't want to do that. You want to set the tire onto the concrete, you want that grip to be solid, and then you want to keep it solid all the way through, and smooth is the way you do that. Anytime you start causing a bunch of different movement on the bike, it upsets that. So I'll do a couple different passes right here, and I'll show you guys exactly what I mean. All right, so here you're coming into the corner. I'm standing up the whole time, it's no problem. Because of the speed, it's easy to pedal through this corner at this point in time. Go all the way through, right? No problem whatsoever. Now I'll come up here and I'll flip around so I'll show you with some speed. And I'm still gonna pedal all the way through the corner. Well, you'll see me stop just right there. And I hesitate just for a second because if I kept pedaling through at that speed, you're gonna clip the pedal for sure when you come out of that corner. And then once you clip the pedal, of course, things get real dangerous fast. Now we're gonna do this corner at speed again and show you what I mean with the pedals. They need to be smooth as soon as you come out of the corner. You need to be in the right gearing so that you're coming out at that 80 RPM and not that 150 RPM, because that extra speed will cause the back tire, the back wheel to kick. So you can't come through like this. You see it hops the back wheel. You can hear the noise back there, even where the back wheel skipped just a little bit. And that's all because the revolution on the pedals is spinning so fast that it's upsetting the contact point between the tire and the concrete, and it loses that grip because the RPM in the pedals is so fast. So it's really important to remember when you're coming out of these turns, a lot of times you'll carry speed coming down this hill. You'll come out of this corner here with a lot of speed, and if you start pedaling right away, it causes your butt to hop a little bit on the saddle, and then it's upsetting the contact point on the concrete and the tire. Always the main thing is smooth contact pressure on between the tire and between the concrete. So that RPM is really important to make sure that the gear is big enough so that when you're pedaling through the corners, it's smooth power and not jerky power. I'll do it again at speed here. Now this one's gonna be at a lot of speed because I'm gonna get a good run up to the turn. So this is be a real life kind of race scenario speed. All the way from outside, hit the inside, stop pedaling for a second, but the RPMs are still smooth, right? You're out of the saddle right away. Now, if I jump out of that saddle, I'm in the wrong gearing and the RPM's too high. That back end kicks every time and you lose traction. Then things get dangerous again. If I was to get on the pedals while the bike's still leaned over coming into this corner with that high RPM, you're gonna cause the chain to kind of whip too, and you might drop the chain. So it's always important, right gearing when you're coming into these corners that you wanna pedal through. Okay, a couple other things too. When the road, this turn here is all completely smooth right here, so it's not much of a problem other than the one crack right here in the road. If you're coming into a turn that's really bumpy and rough, you can't pedal through that at all, unless of course, you know, Julian Alaphilippe, Peter Sagan, those guys can do just about anything. But the rest of us, once the road is bumpy or there's gravel, for sure if there's gravel you can't pedal through. If it's a really bumpy road though, before the road gets bumpy, you want to stop pedaling. You want to coast through that part without any kind of power to the pedals, without pedaling at all. Coast through that, and then as soon as it becomes unbumpy, then you can get back on the pedals and start to accelerate again. But if you're pedaling while it's bumpy, you're going to lose that contact on the back wheel. It's going to bump like that and move you around, and then that's what causes the bike to kick a little bit, possibly causes the bike to lean a little more, and you clip the pedal. Or the big one is the chain pops off because you're bouncing around with the back wheel, pops off the front chain ring, and then causes something to get locked up. Now we've seen in the video, of course, with Pavel Sivakov, when he crashed, what he did is he clipped his pedal. Once he clipped his pedal, it looked like he could still save it, but what happened, I believe, is that he dropped his chain and then it locked up the cranks. So when he went to try to save it and pedal, once his pedal's locked up like that, that sent him forward on the bike, and then he lost control again. So the first initial problem was him clipping the pedal through the left turn there at the Dauphiné race. The second problem, I believe, is when things got really dangerous, is he dropped his chain and it locked up the cranks. Once it locked up the cranks, it sent his body forward. And then, of course, we see the aftermath of him crashing all over the road spectacularly. And funny enough, or not funny enough, depending on how you look at it, it's Julian Alaphilippe who's in front, who did that same corner. And if you watch Julian Alaphilippe, he pedaled through the corner, but only after the dangerous apex so that his pedal would clear the ground. So Julian Alaphilippe starts his pedaling a little bit later than Pavel Sivakov, and Pavel Sivakov starts his pedaling when the lean angle was too much. He clips his left pedal, throws the back wheel out. Once the back wheel is tossed out, so Garrett, get in a little bit on the back wheel. What's going to happen is when he clips his left pedal here, it's going to lift his back wheel up. Once it lifts his back wheel up, his bike's going to go like this. And when it lands, there's a good chance he's going to tear the tire off or flat the tire. If they're running tubular race tires, he's going to tear the tire off because of the impact, the side impact this way, and it'll pull the tire off. If he's running tubulars, there's a good chance he'll flat it. And then once he flats it, he loses control. Or in this scenario with Pavel Sivakov, when his chain popped off here, it locked up in the cranks, and that wouldn't allow the cranks to turn forward. He was expecting the pedals to be able to still turn, so he's adjusting his body for an acceleration mode, and then so he's already moving his body forward. When it locks, it stops his body and then throws his weight forward because he was expecting the bike to accelerate with him, and that of course didn't happen. So remember, again, always important is that contact point between the tire and the concrete. That's what's keeping the bike upright. All right, guys, so to round everything up, remember, you have to be able to pedal through the corner. So it's a technique you want to master and you want to practice that, but you have to do it carefully because it's really dangerous if you get things wrong. You don't want to get things wrong when you're going 30 miles an hour and you're pedaling through the corners, but in order to be competitive, stay with your Grand Fondo rides, you young bike racers out there trying to make the next Tour de France and stuff, you guys have to be able to pedal through the corners. Otherwise, you're not going to stay with that group and you're going to waste a lot of energy always closing that gap that you open up trying to be careful through the corners. The main thing I want to stress on today is that you have to be able to pedal through the corners, but you also have to know when you can and when you can't pedal through the corners. When you're going slow, you can pedal all the way through. When you're going fast, you're going to have to stop pedaling when you got the bike really leaned over in the apex and then start again. And of course, make sure you're in the right gearing. Now, when I was racing in Europe, a lot of times I'd be behind Greg Van Avermaet, and Greg Van Avermaet, he was a sprinter, right? So he loved to open up the gap to be safe. He'd open up a gap in front of him, we'd go through the corner, but he had such an acceleration and punch that he'd just punch it right away, close that gap, and I'd be behind him just floundering for 10 seconds trying to close that gap at 100% effort while he closed it in 2 seconds. So you have to not be scared of going through the corners fast and pedaling through the corner. Just make sure you identify the corner quickly on which ones you can pedal through and how you can and for how long before you have to pause at the apex, pedal on the exit. Make sure you arrive with the right gearing as you're coming into that corner. And of course, make sure the corner is smooth if you're going to pedal all the way through it. If there's gravel, that becomes dangerous to pedal. And of course, if it's bumpy, you have to wait for the bumps to finish before you get back on the pedals again. Those are my safest techniques and skills for you guys to practice on at home, carefully practice on, and slowly build up to it to make it so that you're faster through the corners to be able to stay with that front group of fast guys. Hope you guys like the channel. I'll see you on the next Chris Horner's Corner. Hope like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys real soon.